Seattle Historical Park.
So the road leading into the park here follows the cuts made by the Union Pacific and Central Pacific as they came together here at Promontory. The crews were working ahead of where the track actually were, so both rail lines made cuts in anticipation on where their lines would go, and so there were two parallel lines in the area because each had their own, and then once they realized how close they were to each other, then they made preparations to merge the lines together as the plan was. So we're getting to the main part of the park now, and you can actually see the engines out of the area on display in the main part of the visitor center area. Unfortunately, the visitor center is closed due to COVID-19 related issues. So this display board kind of tells you a little bit about the location. You have the visitor center, which is number 1. We're going to go out to the last spike site, which is out on number 2, and they actually have their 2 engines out there, and we're going to then do one of the driving tours, the one on the way back out. Yep, where we're going to see the Chinese Arch and see some other spots as we drive back out. So outside of the visitor center, we have the Southern Pacific Monument recognizing the last spike. Susan,
which used to be written right here, but because of years of weathering, erosion, vandalism, and them trying to restore it and unintentionally doing it wrong, you can hardly make out any of the description now, but it used to say that this was the last spike driven at this point on such and such date.
So this used to be on the Southern Pacific rail line, which Southern Pacific became Central Pacific became Southern Pacific, and then eventually Southern Pacific became part of UP. So it's really cool history about the Transcontinental Railroad. So where the steam locomotives are the last spike site is in between the 2 locomotives. We're going to head out there in a moment, but I wanted to give you a wider view of it before we headed out there. Just a reminder, this was completed in 1869, so 2019 was the 150th anniversary of the driving of the last spike. And this is representing the site of the Golden Spike. Looking at the 119 here without getting up on it. So you have your coal tender here. See, look, coal. And then you have your engine compartment right there. And there you have Susan.
Pretty cool.
Main difference on the Jupiter here from 119 is it has wood instead of... And the steam's coming out, the steam release.
If we were going to stick around for another hour and 20 minutes, we'd get the steam demonstration, but we gotta get going.
Yep.
But I think that would be pretty cool.
But I love this. It's great to be at a point in American history. So can you imagine building a railroad line by hand with high-tech equipment like that cart?
Nope.
Nope.
So 6 million spikes and 6 years of work, all to get to this point.
Pretty awesome. So we are going to take the East Auto Tour, and it's on this little dirt road.
One way, thank goodness. I don't have to watch for oncoming cars.
Yeah, this reminds me of Wind Cave, where it was a 2-lane...
And it was almost just as wide. Maybe a little bit wide, but yeah.
So yeah, so basically this auto tour road takes you on the grade that the Union Pacific and Central Pacific had for the lines through this area. And along this route we'll see the Chinese Arch. So that will be coming up shortly. So right over where those piles of rocks are, that is the last cut that was done by the Union Pacific. And it was one of the hardest points of construction for the Union Pacific because of the terrain. They had to do 5 cuts and 4 trestles just through this short period of landscape. Look at the view of the Great Salt Lake and all that, and the salt flats down there. It's just simply beautiful. So this is one of the cuts that was made. You know, you can see where the rail line ran through, and you can see the cut further in the distance. These were all hand carved out. They didn't have the machinery that they have today to blast and scoop out. No, they were carting it off. And right down here you can see the other railroad cut right down there where the other line went. So to our right is the Union Pacific, and we're basically on the Central Pacific cut right here. In the gap between here and here was where Union Pacific had a trestle over that gap. And once again, the view from up here is amazing. And we're driving through another cut.
So right here is the Chinese Arch. More than likely, Chinese Arch was named in recognition of the presence and contribution by the Chinese who worked on the Transcontinental Railroad. It is an embodiment of strength and stamina demonstrated during their construction and subsequent maintenance of the Transcontinental Railroad.
Right over there on the hillside, you can actually see the 2 grades as they go around, and they all led to the Central Pacific having a big fill, and the Union Pacific having a big trestle. And here's another look at the view as we come down off of the Promontory Hill in Golden Spike National Historic Park. Simply breathtaking, actually. You'd think such a dry deserty area, it wouldn't be so beautiful, but it is absolutely gorgeous.
All right, so we wrapped up Golden Spike National Historical Park, and I thought it was really awesome. I've always wanted to do it as well. It's just a great spot to go see because of the historical value of it. Kids would love it too, especially if they're into trains.
And try to get there if you do have kids at about 1 o'clock.
Yeah, so they can
see the steam demonstration.
Yeah.
I personally did not need to see the steam demonstration. I've seen steam engines in the past. I thought it was just cool to have the engines there that you could look at to get pictures of, and to just understand the importance of the Transcontinental Railroad and that spot bringing the nation together to allow rail commerce to travel from coast to coast.
And a good little tip is, since the steam demonstration was round 1, you can do what the kids were doing today with their parents, having a picnic in the shaded picnic area around noon. And so then you get lunch out of the way, then you get the steam demonstration, and then you're good to go.
Find your park.